Welcome to the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and I am on the mission to change the narrative of immigration, one immigrant story at a time. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidy De La Cruz, and I have a special guest today, Anique. And Anique, can you please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about your background and your journey of coming to the United States?
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Anique Samuel. I'm an immigration attorney who is located in Miami, Florida. I'm actually originally from the islands of Antigua and Barbuda, but I'm now located in the United States. One of my favorite things to do while visiting Antigua is to go sailing around the island. I love sailing. So anytime you're out there, that's one of the things to do.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so I know that you had mentioned, or when you filled out the questionnaire, that you came as a child. So how old are you when you came to the United States?
So I have a little bit of a different background in terms of visiting the United States. So as a
Okay.
child, I used to visit the United States because my mom immigrated to the United States when I was a toddler.
Okay.
So during the summer times, I would go on vacation when school was out and I would visit her. But I actually immigrated to the United States when I was 17, right after I graduated high school. So
Gotcha.
that's when I officially moved here.
Okay. So how was it growing up in the island up until you were 17?
It was good. I think for the most part, I had a great life growing up in the islands. You know, of course, things are different when you compare it to the US. But the island life is what I grew up knowing. So it wasn't, I felt like I lived a great life back home.
Mm.
But I wasn't oblivious to the fact that there weren't as many opportunities back home in the islands as opposed to, as some place like the United States. So back home, I would say the opportunities were probably a bit limited because of the resources that were available.
Gotcha. Okay. And so when you finally moved to United States at the age of 17, what state did you guys move to?
We moved to New York City.
New York. Now that is a culture shock, I'm sure, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And how was it when you saw snow for the first time? I mean, you probably saw it. I don't know if you saw it when you came to visit the United States, but I know for a fact that sometimes that's a cultural shock in itself to some immigrants, like when they see snow. So how was it moving to United States or to New York specifically from being in the island?
So, funny story, when I used to visit, I only used to visit in the summertime, but one Christmas, I was actually able to visit my mom for Christmas and spend the Christmas with her. And so I got to experience snow for the first time. I got to wear the big, thick jackets. And, I was so excited about doing stuff like that because, back home in the islands, it's
Yeah.
super hot all the time, all year round. So you don't really get that experience. And then when you see snow, your experience with snow is just seeing it on the TV. And, so being able to see it in real life was so surreal, especially to a teenager or a child. So it
Yeah,
was pretty
definitely.
cool, but very
Oh,
cold.
yes, I bet.
Very,
How long
very,
did you
very, very
guys
cold.
how long did you guys live in New York for?
Um, well, my mom has been there for, I want to say, probably over 30 years. And she actually still lives in New York as well, too.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was there for that entire time from when I immigrated in 2006. I was there up until I went to law school in Florida in 2014.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, we'll get into your law school journey in a little bit because I'm definitely intrigued about that. So I want to know, how was it after moving to United States, right? Like you're living here and everything. Like how was it visiting back home after, being living here in the United States? How was that experience?
It was a little bit different because, now you're getting used to a new routine, a new life, basically, new surroundings, new everything, basically. Because I think visiting some place for vacation for like 3 weeks, even a month or 2 months is totally different than actually living there, You have to get acclimated with meeting new people, making new friends, and stuff like that. But going back home, I used to return home during the summers. Antigua is known for having carnivals during the summertime. So I would go back home and visit my family and friends. And, it was just very refreshing to be around so many friendly faces that I would have known for so many years, or, reconnecting with people that maybe I would have lost touch with during that time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is very different, like visiting versus like, okay, I'm actually, living here. And so let's talk about New York for a little bit. How did you adapt? Like, what did you have any struggles with adapting for going from an island to then like the city life?
I don't think so, but I think the reason why I didn't have issues with adapting is because I was familiar with visiting that state. Maybe if it was a case where I just jumped in 2006, never having visited the United States, I think it would have been more of a culture shock for me. But because I was already used to living there, and then I moved there with my mom,
Hmm.
to my mom. So again, it's someone else who I'm also familiar with. I think that transition kind of helped to make it a little bit easier, even though, it's still obviously a lot different than
Yeah.
just visiting.
Yeah, for sure. And besides your mom, do you guys have or had any family in New York?
Yes, so I have siblings in New York. I have also, aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that in New York. So I had other family members as well. So I think all of that helped to make the transition easier. I actually even had one of my friends who I grew up knowing
Oh,
in Antigua who also relocated around the same time. So it
wow.
also, yeah, I think, make having someone your age that you can talk to, you can maybe go to the park with, all these things. It helped to make it a lot easier.
That is rare that you had a friend who was going through the same thing at the same time. So you guys are able to, support each other. That is amazing. And that's very nice because, obviously adapting to a new place it takes some time, but I'm glad that you were able to have your friend to have that support.
Yes, but what I will say is I did miss my friends and family very much. So I used to be buying $2 phone cards every
Oh
weekend
my God, the phone cards. Yeah.
and calling home, every chance that I could get, I was calling home. I was online on MSN Messenger because,
Oh
that
my
was back in the
gosh,
day.
yes.
So I was always online talking to my friends, because, I only had like one or two friends who were in the US. So
Yes. Okay. So for those audience who don't know, before WhatsApp, before these internet apps and everything, the way that we would be able to speak to our family, friends back home in different countries was those little calling cards. They were like either $2 or $5. And
mhm.
you had to they gave you X amount of minutes too. So depending on how much the calling card was, it depends on how much money you had, and you had to use those to be able to talk long distance. And you have 1 minute left in this call. Oh man, I remember that. Or like my dad will sent me like to go, buy the calling cards. Oh my goodness. Yes. And then the MSN, obviously, the instant messaging. So people would just like be online. Oh my gosh. So many memories.
Yes, definitely. Good memories.
Yes, definitely. All right, so let's talk about your law school journey. Did you always know that you wanted to be an attorney, or how did that came about? Hi, Heidi here. Thank you so much for listening and supporting my podcast, but most importantly, the mission. If you would like to further support this podcast, there are a few ways you can do that. You can sign up for the newsletter. You'll receive the episodes straight to your inbox every time they drop. The link is in the show notes and the show description. You can subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel. And lastly, you can donate money. That link is also in the show notes and show description. If you would like to sponsor an episode or promote your business on this show, send me an email at Heidy@HeidyDelacruz.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I think I knew I wanted to be an attorney around maybe when I got into high school. I was always very into, it's a little cliche, but I was always very into old law shows like Matlock and so on. I don't know if you would have remembered Matlock, but it was an old TV show with a lawyer. And I was always very intrigued by his demeanor, the way he was able to make good legal arguments and stuff like that. And so I started looking further into it. And then I actually went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is heavily geared towards persons who are interested in going into the legal field, whether you want to be a police officer, if you want to go into politics, or if you want to go into the legal world, such as becoming an attorney. So that was really one of my first takes of solidifying the fact that, okay, at some point I am going to go to law school.
Yeah. Nice. And so, but you came to Florida. Did you know that you wanted to come to law school in Florida, or how did that come about?
No, actually, I wanted to. So I was in a stage where I wanted to get out of New York. There were other, I knew there were schools all over the US, and I wanted to experience that college life. So John Jay College is a college that you have to commute to. It doesn't have a campus dorm available. So I wanted that college experience, so to speak. So I wanted to go away and get that experience, as well as, to just experience a new state, something new. So I actually applied to all schools outside of New York because I was adamant about not attending a school in New York. So that's how I ended up in Florida, really.
Okay.
But I did apply to different states as well.
Okay, okay, so it wasn't just Florida. It was just like, I just need to get out of New York, period.
Yes.
Gotcha. And so did you always know that you wanted to go the immigration route, or did you want to do a different law? And then while going through law school, you realized like immigration was what you wanted to do?
Yes. So my intent was to actually go into corporate law. But then I realized I didn't really know much about corporate law. And while I was in law school, I was able to get experience in different areas, which is what was pretty cool. So I took part in the immigration clinic. It was basically a clinic where you have students, for lack of a better term, student attorneys. So we were directed by our professor, who is a licensed attorney. She would help us to basically, we provided legal representations for underserved communities. So for persons who weren't able to afford, the attorney, the big shot attorney or so, they would come to us and we would provide them the same type of legal representation. It's just that it was a much lower cost to them. And that interaction with the clinic is what really made me really intrigued about the process. And then I decided to stay on for the clinic for another term. And then I took part in like various pro bono activities like Citizenship Day. And then I decided, I think I want to practice immigration law. Being that I myself kind of went through the immigration process as well, as I wasn't born in the United States, so I had to go to the embassy to get a visa. I had to do the whole process. I went, although I was young, so I didn't have to, answer questions for an interview per se, but I did go through the process and I felt like I could add positive value to this community.
Yeah, definitely. And the immigration system right now is like so backlogged, so it's like more help is needed and stuff. So it's such an important work that you're doing right now. What do you like about being an immigration attorney?
I enjoy being able to figure out I like being able to solve problems. And, a lot of times people think that immigration is all about filling out forms. And while part of it is about filling out forms, when things go wrong, there's a lot of things that we have to undo or we have to find a way around it. So I really like the technicality of all of that. I like being able to, you know, go back into history and find out. Sometimes clients don't even know what really happened in their history. So we end up learning new things together. And and we have to do the research and being able to find ways to help them to stay in the United States.
Yeah, nice. And what is one thing you dislike?
I dislike the fact that, there's a notion out there that things can be done so quickly. Everyone wants to achieve the American dream, so to speak. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who are willing to they're basically willing to deceive a lot of people who really just want to get to the United States to achieve this dream. And so I really hate how they basically it's like they're predators to these people. I think they prey on a lot of innocent people who, they don't know any better and they just want to achieve this dream. They want to make sure that their families lives are in a safer place. They want to ensure that they can, build up their family life. They can make money. They can, bring their children up in a better environment. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who do bad stuff against that, and they prey on these people. So
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So you mentioned the American dream. What does the American dream mean to you?
The American dream means to me being able to pursue all opportunities available. Being from a small island, as I mentioned before, a lot of resources were limited. So a lot of times people would immigrate, or they would leave the country and go to other countries to get better lives. And I think having the American dream is being able to achieve that better life, even to exceed what you think that maybe what you initially intended to achieve, you achieve beyond that. So that's what the American dream means to me.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And being an attorney, an immigration attorney, I know there's a lot of policy changes and a lot of things that go on. And I know that the work is a lot. And there's not enough help with the amount of work that there is. But if you could just clear up one misconception that you hear a lot, or one misconception that really that's not true, like just one misconception that you could clear up for the audience today.
One misconception is nothing happens overnight. I hear a lot of people say, I've heard a lot of clients, a lot of potential clients, so many people think that you can submit an application the next day or the next week, it's going to be approved. Maybe one or two people that has happened to, but it's not the majority of cases. Immigration is a very slow moving engine. Nothing happens quickly. And when it does, I think you should probably be err on the side of caution, when it does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes.
So how can people connect with you if they, want to work with you, or they just want to know more information about the process? How can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Attorney Anique. That is Anique, Attorney Anique, as well as Facebook, which is Anique Samuel.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will include the links to your Instagram and your Facebook. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and your story. Yes, I had never interviewed someone from your island before, so I thought that was very unique and very interesting. And I love that you are decided, to be an immigration attorney because I just know, especially being in the space and in speaking to many immigrants and immigration attorneys, like I know how much work there is. So I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and
Thank you.
um, definitely learning from you from your Instagram and stuff. So just thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It has been really a pleasure speaking with you today.